through a heavily wooded region called the Reichswald. However, unknown to the Allies, the German First Parachute Army had heavily reinforced the Reichswald right in the path of the offensive. The climate also favoured the Germans. By now, the winter snow had begun to thaw. Floods and mud would seriously reduce the attackers' mobility. Operation Veritable, the 21st Army Group's northern thrust, began on schedule on the 8th of February. The greatest artillery barrage yet seen in the West numbed the first line of defenders. However, as British and Canadian troops plunged into the wooded region of the Reichswald, the 1st Parachute Army put up a bitter fight, holding out for more than a week. The Canadians and British finally captured the towns of Kleve and Goch and broke through to secure the west bank of the Rhine, from Emmerich to the German town of Wesel. The 21st Army Group's southern thrust, Operation Grenade, was to be mounted by the U.S. 9th Army and was to attack towards Düsseldorf and Cologne. Facing the Americans were divisions of the German 15th Army. The operation was meant to begin at the same time as the northern attack, but the Germans opened the Rohr dams and flooded much of the region. It took 2 weeks for the Rohr floods to subside, and only then could the Americans advance. Once the attack got going, it made good progress. By the 2nd of March, 9th Army had secured positions on the west bank of the Rhine. 2 days later, elements of 1st Army also reached the river, and on the 5th, they entered the suburbs of Cologne. German resistance in Cologne was particularly fierce. The defenders clung to every pile of rubble, and the process of clearing the city was agonizing and costly. It was 2 days before Cologne finally surrendered. To the south, 12th Army Group, with the American 1st Army and elements of 3rd Army, had begun its two-pronged drive to the Rhine. Facing the Americans were the German 5th Panzer Army and the 15th and 7th Armies. Operation Lumberjack made good progress, heading through the Eifel region towards Koblenz. As the Allies advanced closer to the Rhine, they meant only to secure the west bank. However, on the 7th of March, elements on the extreme right flank of the U.S. First Army approached the Rhine close to the town of Remagen, only to discover that a bridge had been left intact. As the 9th Armoured Division had driven through Remagen, they had expected to find the railway bridge over the Rhine had been blown by the Germans. However, the Germans' main explosive charges had failed to detonate, and the reserve charges had weakened the bridge but had failed to destroy it. At once, the astonished Americans raced to seize the crossing. The American commanders, Bradley and Eisenhower, had seen the possibility of capturing a bridge over the Rhine intact as extremely remote. No plans had been made for such an unlikely event. All that Bradley could do was to rush the nearest units to the bridge and get them across as fast as was humanly possible. Almost at once, engineers began to construct another 2 treadway bridges upstream. By the evening of the first day, the bridgehead on the east bank of the Rhine was packed with American men and equipment. Nor was First Army content merely to consolidate the bridgehead. Almost at once, a force struck out to sever the main German autobahn between Frankfurt and Cologne. While 21st Army Group was closing to the Rhine opposite Wesel, and in the centre, the Remagen bridgehead was being secured, 12th and 6th Army Groups had also been making progress. 3rd Army was pushing closer to Koblenz, and 7th, together with the right flank of 3rd Army, had begun Operation Undertone, clearing an area up to the Rhine between Koblenz and Strasbourg. The French First Army had finally liquidated the last pocket of German resistance around Colmar, and by the end of March 1945, the Allies held a line running the whole length of the River Rhine. For the Germans, the loss of the bridge at Remagen had been a stunning blow. The enemy had crossed Germany's greatest river frontier almost without a fight. As news of the latest disaster had reached Hitler, he had flown into an uncontrollable rage. The commander-in-chief of the Wehrmacht in the West, Field Marshal von Rundstedt, was fired, and the officers who had failed to blow the bridge were shot. Hitler was determined to destroy the bridge at Remagen, and for the first and only time, the V-2 rocket was used as a tactical weapon. The attacks failed. In any case, nothing could now prevent a massive Allied offensive along the whole length of the River Rhine and into the German heartland. Even before the 3 Allied army groups had closed up to the Rhine, the staffs of each had begun to plan for the final crossing. Field Marshal Montgomery's 21st Army Group planned a powerful amphibious assault, codenamed Operation Plunder. For the attack, naval landing craft had been transported overland to the front, and 250,000 tons of supplies had been stockpiled. With 3 full-strength armies and 5,000 artillery pieces, Montgomery intended to seize a substantial bridgehead over the Rhine, and then, maintaining the momentum, strike deep into Germany. Operation Plunder would be reinforced by Operation Varsity, a powerful assault by the US 17th Airborne and British 6th Airborne Divisions with 3,000 aircraft and gliders. These forces would be dropped east of the Rhine to enlarge the bridgehead.